Ontario Premier Doug Ford's government is struggling, even as Ford tries desperately to keep the spotlight on the trade feud with the US President Donald Trump. But amidst the chaos and the failures, what do the progressive conservatives do? Well, they go on an extended winter break, of course. Let's dig in. Ahead of the holidays, Ontario is an absolute dumpster fire right now under Doug Ford's progressive Conservatives. While the Premier and his government take a 15-week winter break, beginning only shortly after a brief session and a 19-week summer break, the Ontario legislature isn't set to resume sitting until March 23rd, 2026. This undermining of democracy and government accountability comes as Ontario becomes increasingly engulfed by dumpster fire flames. The Ford government is drowning in scandals and failing our kids spectacularly. It started with a massive corruption bombshell in the $2.5 billion Skills Development Fund. Labor Minister David Piccini is under intense fire after the Auditor General's scathing report revealed the program is anything but fair, transparent, or accountable. Over 64 lower scoring applicants got approved for millions after hiring lobbyists. Many of these lobbyists have cozy ties to the PC party, and some recipients are big donors or unions that backed Ford. The allegations include that Piccini's office overruled bureaucrats, picking pet projects without proper documentation. One company even got funding after the minister attended their lobbyist's fancy Paris wedding and sat ringside at a Leafs game with their directors. The opposition is demanding Piccini's resignation. The NDP wants an integrity probe, and a forensic audit was even sent to the OPP for investigation. But Ford, well, he's defending it all, claiming it's great for workers. And to me, it smells like classic cronyism, rewarding friends and insiders with your tax dollars while real workers get left behind. And get this, while all of this is exploding or imploding, depending on how you want to look at it, Ford's government barely showed up to work this year. Only 51 sitting days in 2025 before jetting off on his extended winter break. It's the perfect way to avoid accountability because it turns out also in Ontario, our schools are a complete dumpster fire, prioritizing things like ideological servitude over academic integrity and the basics that our kids desperately need, especially after Ontario locked them down longer than anywhere else in the world. The latest Education Quality and Accountability Office, called EQAO, results dropped after a suspicious delay, and they're dismal. Half of grade 6 students and over 40% of grade 9s aren't meeting the math standard. Reading and writing saw tiny bumps, but overall, Minister Paul Calandra even admits the pace of improvements is not adequate. He's launching reviews and advisory bodies, but this is after years of the so-called back to basics curriculum that this government launched, which has obviously been a massive failure. Look at what's really happening. Ford's government has seized control of major school boards like Toronto, Ottawa Carleton, and others, appointing supervisors over things like financial mismanagement and deficits. Opposition parties and union-affiliated advocates are naturally calling it a power grab to centralize control, especially in urban areas, and silence and disregard elected trustees. They've even passed Bill 33, giving the education minister massive new powers to intervene, approve school names, and more, all while underfunding education and receiving a massive influx of Canada's share of immigration since 2018. The kids are the ones paying the ultimate price for this chaos. Massive gaps in achievement, especially in math, with no real fixes in sight as mental health crises and skyrocketing classroom violence plague our schools, all while forced inclusion policies destroy discipline, standards, and the focused learning environment that students desperately need. But regardless, you still fund it all. Ontarians deserve better than insider deals, endless breaks for politicians, and a failing public sector from education to healthcare. Ford talks tough and even goes so far as to call President Trump a tyrant, saying that they're really hurting down there as though tourism has died down thanks, I guess, single-handedly to Ford's encouragement to stay home and support local tourism here in Canada and Ontario?
They're hurting down there right now. They're hurting on all fronts. They're hurting on their economy. President Trump is at the lowest rating that any president has been in the first year, and God knows probably 100 years. So it's taking effect.
But Florida Governor Ron DeSantis clapped back, calling out misinformation monger Ford with this post on X. Actually, we continue to break tourism records and win Stanley Cups, he wrote. So as Ontario's families grapple with skyrocketing costs, crumbling schools, and a government more interested in insider perks than public service, Doug Ford's progressive Conservatives have chosen vacation over vigilance and deflection over delivery. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. If you'd like to support our work holding the politicians' feet to the fire, please do so by heading over to rebelnewsstore.com. There you can purchase t-shirts, mugs, any other rebellious paraphernalia that your heart desires. You can also use code TAMARA10, that's TAMARA 10, to save 10% off at checkout. All of that at rebelnewsstore.com.